Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Todd coming at you with another episode of Living Your Best Life. And I want to say thank you, of course, for giving us some of your time this evening, this afternoon, this morning, whenever you are, wherever you are while you're watching this episode. Of course, what we do is we invite a professional on to talk about what they do and how what they do is contributing to a healthier society, a wealthier society, just a better society in general. And today, everyone, you are in for a treat. And this is why. So normally, if you watch some of the episodes before, we mainly talk about health and wellness, and that's the foundation of the show. Today, even though we're going to stay in that health and wellness range or realm, we're going to take a slight turn because we're going to talk about the spiritual side of health and wellness. And we're not talking about religion or anything like that, but we're going to be talking about energy healing through a practice called Reiki. And this is something that is very new to me. I didn't know a lot about it really until I spoke with this awesome young lady that's going to be on the show, Dr. Pamela Howard out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. And she's going to be sharing with us about her Reiki practice. Listen, this woman is changing lives with her practice. So I really urge you to really get in contact with her. Take out your notes, notepad, notebook, or what have you. Take some notes, get in contact with her because, like I said, she is changing lives, Dr. Pamela Howard. So before we get on to the show, everybody, you know what I got to talk about. Let's talk about your health. Let's talk about your gut health, rather. And of course, we have the 15% off on our Ultimate Aloe. So make sure you take care of that, all right? If you take care of your gut will ultimately take care of you, okay, overall. And of course, as they say, life and death does begin in the gut. So take advantage of that 15% off on our Ultimate Aloe juice. And I'll see you on the other side of the commercial. Dr. Pamela Howard is coming up. Take care now. Bye-bye. And so welcome back, everybody. Listen, once again, like I said earlier, thank you so much and for hanging out with us today. We have an awesome young lady on that's going to be talking to us about this practice called Reiki. Now, myself, I wanted to have her onto the show because I'm not too familiar with it. I've heard of energy work, but I'm not real familiar with it. And this is going to be interesting and really new to me as I'm going to learn. And I hope, and I'm not saying I hope, but I know that you're going to gather some knowledge from her because she is a real, I would say, somebody that's out there really doing what she does when it comes to being in the trenches. And I am so excited to have her on to the show this afternoon. Dr. Pamela Howard, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing fantastic.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for just hanging out with us for a little bit today. So, you're down in the Atlanta, Georgia area, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
Of course, I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, and definitely do pray for those individuals that are going through the storm that we had to deal with. I'm in a new location today because I'm shut down electricity wise. And so, but hey, God will make a way, right? And
Absolutely.
So I'm blessed with that. But so Doc, you are in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and you are a Reiki master from what I understand, right?
Correct, yes.
Right, so tell us a little bit about yourself, what attracted you to becoming a Reiki master and all that good stuff. I'm looking forward to hearing that.
Okay, so my original degree is in pharmacy. That's where the doctor part of the name comes from. I have a PharmD. But at some point, I got tired of watching my customers come in and they would pick up prescriptions, maybe for one medication. And then a couple years later, or even the next year, they're getting another medication or two more medications. And then a few more years go by and either now they have the experience of cancer or a heart attack, a stroke, or, something like that. And I realized that pharmacy wasn't doing what I thought it should be doing as far as really helping someone to heal. And I also found myself in a position of helping people get off medications. So it was a little bit of a conflict of interest because of course I'm getting paid by my employer to dispense. But at the same time, if someone would come in and ask questions about, oh, I'm really tired, what do you have that I can take? I didn't want to just send them over to the no-dos because I knew
Mm-hmm.
there was a reason they were tired. And
Yeah.
that goes back to your intro where you mentioned preventative instead of um, trying to fix stuff once it breaks. So I
Yeah.
could send them over somewhere and get them some no-dos or whatever for caffeine or, things like that. But the key is, why are you tired? So I found myself doing those interviews of, oh, well, how much sleep did you get last night?
Mm-hmm.
What are you eating? How much water did you drink? Those kinds of things. And eventually I found that I had to go. It just didn't
Oh,
sit
yeah.
well in my spirit. Um, I felt that I was trading their well-being for my own. I was
Mm-hmm.
getting very paid really well, but at the same time, in my conscience, I knew that I could help them in a different way. So I don't know, I did a fast for purpose, my very
Mm-hmm.
first fast ever. I fasted for purpose to see, okay, well, if I leave pharmacy, what do I do? Where do I go? And after that fast, everything just, it was like the small domino. If you ever read the one thing, and he talks about that small domino can topple
Mm-hmm.
the large one by the time you
Mm-hmm.
make
Mm-hmm.
more steps. And that fast set everything in motion. It led
Wow.
to me becoming vegetarian. It led to me getting my first colonic, which then, of course, later I became a certified colon hydrotherapist. Um, it
How
just,
long ago was
it
all of
started
this?
everything.
How long ago was all of this? Like, how long was this?
Okay, so this, around 2006.
Okay.
I want
Okay.
to say
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
2006 or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good while away.
It was a while ago. It was a
Yeah.
while ago. Yeah, it was a while ago. I went fully vegetarian in '07, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So around that time, I also attended a women's retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And the women's retreat was right after, not right after, but probably maybe the beginning of that year is when I went vegetarian. I had done my um, fast. I had gone vegetarian. I had had a colonic. I had sought out. I had gone to an iridologist. Like I had had all these new experiences. I had
Yeah.
been raw for a while. All this stuff. And then I went to this women's retreat. And at the retreat, I was feeling ill,
Mm-hmm.
but the reason I was feeling ill was because of what was going on with me emotionally, because I
Mm.
was having to make that decision of whether I was going to get divorced or not.
Gotcha.
So that's
Gotcha.
kind of where I was.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
processing,
Yeah.
and that emotional angst was causing physical discomfort. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
literally,
Mm-hmm.
I was nauseous, I had a headache, couldn't
Yeah.
really eat there. So I ended up getting a massage at that women's retreat. There was a massage therapist there.
Mm-hmm.
And I can literally remember the moment that everything shifted and I immediately felt better. I know what
Wow.
I was thinking at the time. I know when it just clicked. So when I got off the table, I asked him, I said, what kind of massage was that? Because that wasn't, I just knew that was not
Yeah.
just a regular massage.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, I did a little Reiki with it. And I was like, what is Reiki? So
Ah,
that was
interesting.
my first experience.
Wow.
I was like, what is Reiki? And he told me, oh, it's just energy work or whatever. And I was like, I just kept it in my head. I got to check
Mm-hmm.
that thing out. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I was at Hillside. I was attending Hillside at the time. And there was an orientation by a Reiki practitioner there.
Yeah.
And I went into the orientation, we talked about it, and I said, yeah, I'm interested or whatever. And it just went on from there. I ended up getting attuned with her for my level 1 and just kept going with it. Once I left pharmacy, initially I was doing consultations for people,
Mm-hmm.
just wellness consultation type things, to help them mostly with their emotional health, because I knew
Mm-hmm.
that that would impact their physical health, but
Right.
also
Right.
the physical, because people, if someone comes to you and they're hungry, you can't just teach them how to fish because they're hungry right then. So you
Right.
feed them and teach them. And
Right.
so, yeah, that's kind of what I was doing. I ended up becoming certified in iridology, colon hydrotherapy, Reiki, like all the things. And
All
then
the
I have a
things
wellness.
that
Mhm.
it's like all the things that we don't normally think of when it comes to health and wellness. And I definitely appreciate and respect you highly for that, because they all play into our overall well-being. And my goodness, congratulations on that transition, because coming from traditional type of, pharmacist mindset. So now let me ask you this question. What caused you to get into pharmacy? What drove you? What attracted you to that? And because have you always been more of the spiritual type of? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Well, two things. The first thing is I really actually was interested in becoming a naturopath
Okay.
from the
Gotcha.
beginning.
Yeah.
But I lived in Florida and there weren't all of the NMD programs. I didn't
Hmm.
even know what an NMD was at the time. I found out later that's what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
But all of the programs that were kind of like for naturopathic type of therapies and stuff like that were on the West Coast. And
Okay.
I grew up, we didn't have money. I was going to have to get a scholarship. With whatever I did, I needed a scholarship. And those types of schools didn't have scholarships to my knowledge.
Yeah.
And I happened to be talking to my friend's mom who was a nurse, and she was like, "Oh, those pharmacy techs make a lot of money, whatever tech, right?"
Yeah.
And so I went to my chemistry teacher at the time and told her, "Yeah, I think I'm going to be a pharmacy tech because pharmacy, I thought, makes a lot of money and it helps people, or so it used to
Hmm.
be."
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so she said, "A tech? No, you wouldn't be a tech. You'd be a pharmacist." And I was like, "Wait a minute, aren't those all old white men?" Because I was from Florida and a lot of the
Right. That's
pharmacists retire
yeah.
and
That's
come
who you
down
knew.
there. And she said, "No, you would be." She was an older white lady, by the way. So she, she said, "No, you would be a pharmacist." And that's kind of,
Gotcha.
what I did.
Right.
And
Wow.
I
Because
enjoyed it. I think it's helped me be better at what I did in wellness
right.
because I understood, first of all, that medical mindset. And I also
Right.
understood what was supposed to be happening in the body and what
Right.
was wrong. So it
Mhm.
was definitely, it made me a better holistic practitioner by knowing that medical side.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And there are no mistakes in the universe. I mean, you're always where you're supposed to be, to either gather information, remember information, or what have you. Um, and when it comes to traditional medicine, I have my issues, of course, especially when I used to live in the Bronx, and there was a doctor that I used to go see in the Bronx. And so, for lack of a better expression, I will say, Doc, is he was almost a drug dealer, because I mean, he was just in there sending out prescriptions. I mean, these people were like coming in, grab their prescriptions, and they're off to the pharmacist. And so, this was just a money making thing for both the doctor and whoever the pharmacist was. And the patient was getting that short term help. But I think over the years, what we're looking for now is we just want to be well. you know at least, as we get older too, it used to be, oh, I want the body and the this and that, boom boom boom, the guns, that whole thing. But now, as we get older, we just want to be well. We just want to feel good. We want to feel rested. And I'm assuming that you probably saw that type of thing not only at the pharmacist area, in space in your life, but also in the what you're doing now.
Definitely, definitely, because in my last year of pharmacy, I was working overnights, actually my last
Hmm.
2 years, but
Hmm.
especially in that last year, I was doing overnight pharmacy and I would be answering calls at like 3 in the morning. And I'm like, how are you up at 3 and you've got to turn around and be up at 5 or 6
Hmm.
to get your kids ready and then go to work? And what I found is a lot of the people who were up at 2 and 3 in the morning, they couldn't sleep because they were having issues in their colon. So
Hmm.
if your bowels aren't moving properly, then you end up having sleep issues, or they were having emotional issues or migraines. That was all related to what was going on in their gut. Simple
Yeah.
fix, but they were coming in getting all these medications to try to fix it. And it was like, so it's such a simple thing. And even in my practice, when I had my wellness center, when I was running full on with it, I did this service. It was a body wrap, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it would
Hmm.
help
Hmm.
people lose inches, but it was doing it by detoxifying their fat cells and stuff like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had this, people would come in because you had to lay out for about an hour, while you were wrapped up.
Hmm.
they would have a standing appointment and come every week and do it because they said it was the best sleep they got
Wow.
every week. So
That's
that rest
crazy.
piece is really important, because
Yeah.
sometimes we sleep, but we don't rest.
Rest.
Yes, yes,
Quality matters.
yes, it
Quality
does.
matters. And we had an individual professional on to talk about that a couple of weeks ago. He's a sleep specialist.
Okay.
Because once again, like you say, rest is important. And when people are coming to you every week just so they can lay down and get away from the crazy, just to come in and feel as though they're doing something good for themselves. And that's awesome. So we've talked about Reiki, and we've kind of talked around it, but so what is Reiki, if you don't mind sharing it, the benefits? You shared some of your personal experiences, and who would seek out a Reiki master?
Well, I'll start at the end of your questions as
Yeah.
far as who would seek out a Reiki master, and say they don't have to seek out a Reiki master. That's a
Okay.
level of
Okay.
practitioner. So you don't have to be a Reiki master to be able to serve someone using Reiki.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Reiki
Gotcha.
master is like the top level. It's kind of like the PhD, so to speak, but you could
Mhm.
work with someone that has a bachelor's or a master's and still
Okay.
get
Okay.
benefit,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Right.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it needs to be someone who's open
Mhm.
to realizing that there's things that they may not understand about how the world works, how the universe works,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Because a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know about that Reiki. Where is it
Right.
coming from? What is it doing? And it's
Right.
basically energy healing. And the way I like to describe it is it's like you use a radio. You
Mhm.
don't see radio waves, but you know if you
Right.
turn that little dial, you're going to hear music or talking or whatever. You don't even question it. You just
Mhm.
go to the box or go to the phone or wherever it is and you turn on radio. Now, Wi-Fi. Nobody questions Wi-Fi. We
Yeah.
use Wi-Fi. We don't know where, we can't see it. We don't know we just know it's
It
a common
exists.
thing. We don't know how it works, right?
Yeah.
But no one questions that. No one wonders whether it's good or evil. None of that. We just use it.
Mhm.
We send a fax from the US over to, you know, Australia or wherever. That fax message goes through amazingly and we don't question it. We just do it.
Mhm.
So that's how I challenge people when we're talking Reiki a lot of times is
Mhm.
it's energy. Everything is energy. At your
Mhm.
base, that's what you are. If you
Mhm.
take your cells and you were to go into and look at your cells, you'd have H2O. Most of us were made mostly of
Mhm.
water, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
When you break water apart, you get hydrogen and oxygen.
Mhm.
Well, that hydrogen is called diatomic, meaning it's two atoms. If you split it, that's where you get the bomb. That's where you get the hydrogen bomb because
Right.
there's
Right.
so much energy just in that one little, atom that was in that one little cell. And you've got all these trillions of cells. You are energy. Not you
Mhm.
have energy, you are energy, right?
Right. Right.
And so Reiki helps to balance that energy out. And that's what helps to bring about the well-being is
Wow.
bringing that body into balance. And I like to say that the practitioner isn't the healer. Okay. I believe in God or source or
Mhm.
creator or some
Mhm.
higher force
Mhm.
or inner force, if that's what you
Mhm.
want to say. But we serve as a vessel.
Mhm.
Okay. We serve as a vessel. We don't do the work. We kind of stand in the gap for you to experience your own well-being, which you could do on your own. But when you're out of order, as far as the way maybe you're living your life, the things you're focusing on, sometimes it's harder for you to tap into what you could naturally do, or maybe you're just ignorant as to how to do it.
Right.
So a Reiki practitioner serves as a vessel to help bring you into balance using the energy that's within you and that's outside of you as well. And
Right.
it's super wonderful for grief, for relaxation, for mental clarity, and all of that.
So how much in balance do you have to be? Because
That's a good question.
yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. And um, there's a couple of things to that. Okay, first of all, when the Reiki practitioner is giving Reiki, it's a one-way thing. They don't have to worry about picking up anything from someone. It's a
That's what
one-way.
I was wondering.
That's why I think it's good for massage therapists to get it, because they're always, a lot of times they complain about being tired because you're touching people and you're picking up, things. When you connect to people, you feel things. Even if no one wants to admit it, when someone walks in a room, you can kind of feel whether you like them or not for some reason. So Reiki's good for that because it's one way. The practitioner, like I said, you're a vessel, right? So think about if you were to put water, consider Reiki as the water. If you put water in a dirty glass, now you got dirty water. It wasn't the water that was the problem, because originally that water wasn't dirty, but because of the vessel that it went in, when you go to drink it, you're drinking something dirty. And so maybe it doesn't give you the same benefits that you could have gotten had that been a clearer vessel. That's the same thing with the Reiki practitioner. So when people say, oh, I did Reiki, it didn't work, it's not the Reiki that's not working. It's either your level of receptivity, okay, or it's the person that was doing it. So what I find is a lot of times Reiki practitioners who have not been trained will think they're doing the work, and their ego gets in the way.
Wow.
Okay. The more your ego is in the way, the less effective you're going to be, because there's only so much you can do as this singular vessel, right? You think you're doing it all. So it matters. And also because, have you ever heard the term study to show thyself approved? Well, when you're doing a consultation with the person, the way you can communicate with them to assist them with furthering whatever healing came or whatever clarity came, or giving them instruction as to what changes they may need to make in their lifestyle, that also goes to you being a good vessel. The more things that you have an understanding of, that you have studied, it broadens your level of communication and the way that you can assist that person.
Right. That is so interesting, because I'll be honest with you, I've never spoken with anyone that does Reiki, Reiki, and I'm definitely getting a wealth of information and useful information and things to think about, because like I said, like you said, energy, we are that. And when we walk into a room, yes, you can feel, a person's energy when they walk into a room. I work with clients, and you know which ones are ready to receive, what you have to offer. Now, because I'm thinking, what's going on in my mind is the word blockages, where you have energy, people have energy blockages. I'm pretty sure that it might be another term or what have you, but it just sounds like some people will have a block or something that's blocking them from receiving the healing work of Reiki. Because, okay, so a session, if you can kind of like share a little bit, because I was looking at a Reiki commercial or something like that, and it's not necessarily hands-on, or is it hands hovering, or
It's both. It can be either. It depends on the practitioner and the person who's receiving. And that's one thing that I teach my students is always ask that person, are they okay with being touched? Because you don't know what traumas that person's coming with. So even though it's not, it could be something as simple as whether you put your hands on their ears or away from their ears. But if they're uncomfortable being touched, then that session needs to be only out. Okay. Now, what's happening when you see the hands a little bit away from the body, they're operating within that person's what's called aura, because you have an energy field outside of yourself, and they can actually scientifically measure that, right? So it's sort of like a flame. If you took any like chemistry classes or anything like that, whenever you have a flame, it's not in the flame where it's the hottest. It's just above the flame where it's the hottest. So you look at that with Reiki as well. So if the practitioner's hands are going along the person's body, when you are just above the body, that's where that that energy, that's where that flame, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be the hottest. Now, sometimes I'll get to an area and I will actually like touch that area, like lay my
Mm-hmm.
hands on it, someone's
Mm-hmm.
knees, someone's feet, or whatever, simply because what I have noticed in my practice is that because we don't touch as much as we used to, we're really
Mm-hmm.
disconnected, that
Mm-hmm.
human to human touch is therapeutic within itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes as you go along, I will actually touch the person's
Mm-hmm.
body
Mm-hmm.
as well as be above, or, mainly so like in the more intimate areas, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely stay above and
Right.
just kind of, hover.
Right.
But in areas where it may not make as much of a difference and they're okay with being touched, like say if I'm working underneath their head, if they're laying down face up and I go under their head, then
Mm-hmm.
I'm touching there.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes
So you can
perfect
do
sense.
either one. It depends on the practitioner and what their style is, because basically you learn a basic structure, like a blueprint to Reiki,
Mm-hmm.
but then it's also that person follows what their guidance or intuition is telling them to do, because they're in the room with this person right now, and you get a sense of what is needed for that person right then. So you don't have to follow a set script each time that you're working on them.
Mm-hmm.
You have certain points that we usually get to, but you may be led to, say, for instance, the hands. That's not an area that we normally would be trained to work on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if
Mm-hmm.
you're led to, I think this person needs me to work on their hands, then you go work on their hands.
Right.
And
Right.
it's interesting because a lot of times if I'm working on someone and there's other practitioners working on them too, if one of us is on one side, one gets on one hand and one is on the other side getting the other hand, usually the person ends up crying, like
Wow.
releasing like a lot of emotion. I don't know what that phenomenon is, but I've seen
Right.
it several times.
That this is so interesting because I mean I have read quite a few books on
Mhm.
chakra systems and things like that. So I understand of energy rising. And so when a person comes to you, or if a person comes to you and they are low energy, can Reiki help if they're willing
Yes,
to? Yeah. So I guess
yes,
you know where I'm going with this.
yes. And you can actually feel it as a practitioner. It'll sound weird, but
Yeah.
literally if I'm around someone,
Mm-hmm.
my hands may start vibrating
Mm.
or they may get hot. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of like, I'll know,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this person may need some Reiki. And
Right.
even if it's, we might just be at a conference or something, and
Oh, I
I
got to
may
get down to
offer it
Atlanta,
to them.
Georgia. I need to know where I am. I tell you.
I may just offer it to them like, hey, are you open to Reiki? And then just lay hands on them then. And
Yeah.
and that term, laying on of hands, Reiki would
Yeah.
be almost like a non-religious version of laying on of hands. Okay. It's sort of like that. But yes, you find people that you can connect to and you can sense whether they need it or not. And they can be low energy. When I'm working on someone, the way I know an area, one of the ways that I can tell if an area has a deficiency is I can literally feel more pulsing in my hand when I'm over a certain area. And that's telling me that that area is a place of deficiency. And so it's drawing more of that energy into itself to get what it needs. Because all your
Yeah.
cells are intelligent. They call
Yeah.
forth what they want. We just don't always listen because we don't know what's being said.
Yeah. Well.
We don't know the language of our own selves
Right.
sometimes.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so like intrigued by this. I'm like, this is amazing, and because I understand it, but I haven't had any work like that done, even though I think that through meditation and
Mhm.
things like that, and you wonder still if even if you're doing it right, if there's a such thing as right, and that's why I said
It's
that.
not the right, it's the intention.
The
Okay.
intention.
It's
Gotcha.
the
Gotcha.
intention.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you break that down?
So, um, well, when you talk about the meditation, for
Right.
instance, when I teach people how to meditate, I don't try to teach them a particular style or anything like
Mhm.
that. I meet them where they are. And
Gotcha.
usually that's just a matter of they just don't even take time to sit and be reflective or sit and just be still long enough for all that good and mercy that's trying to catch them. It
Mm-hmm.
can't even catch up to them because they're just all over the place. So when I teach someone to meditate, I teach them to focus rather than to clear the mind. And as a matter of fact, the first symbol, because you get symbols when you become a Reiki practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
the very first symbol is the symbol that's the focus symbol. In
Mm-hmm.
West, here in the West, a lot of people call it the power symbol,
Mm-hmm.
but in
Mm-hmm.
the East, they call it the focus symbol because
Mm-hmm.
they realize that your power comes from focus. So it's
Wow.
more from that
Wow.
causal level. So
Mm-hmm.
I will just have someone sit and teach them how to breathe properly and then have them focus on that. And that will take them right there to that meditative state. So that's what I'm saying about it's not so much the right or wrong of it, it's the intention of it. Did you even sit there and be still and not necessarily try to clear your mind, just focus on something that's not disturbing you?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
that's the key. The way you raise your vibration, because that's what meditation does, it helps
Yeah.
to raise your frequency or your vibration. The way you raise it is just don't focus on something that's taking it down.
Gotcha.
It's
Gotcha.
really that simple, but it's
Right.
not always easy.
Well, I gotta put you to task on this one. So, what are some things that people can or should be focusing on?
Whatever brings them joy.
Whatever brings them joy. Gotcha.
Yes. What gives them that sense of confidence? What
Mm-hmm.
makes them feel better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's a key. The key is not better. You don't have to feel great. You just need to feel better. Because
Gotcha.
sometimes if you are feeling depressed, you can't go all the way to optimistic or all the way to joyful from
Mm-hmm.
depression. It's too wide of a gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a better feeling than depression could be a little anger,
Mm-hmm.
because at least in anger, you have power. In depression, you
Mm-hmm.
have no power at all, right?
Gotcha.
You
Gotcha.
feel despair, there's no power, you're just like, eh. But at
Focus. Yeah.
least if you're upset, if you're angry, there's a movement to that. And
Mm-hmm.
there's an empowerment to that. And so someone looking in may say, anger isn't good. Huh, it could be depending on where that person was. If you
Mm-hmm.
know that person was in a joyful place and they get angry, now that's a bad thing because they're going the wrong direction.
Right.
But if
Right.
that person was in despair or grief or depression, a little anger is that fire lighting up in them. And they'll move on past it, but you just have to realize that's where they are at that time. And they just need help moving on past it so that they can get to that place where now they can be in joy or in peace or in hope or whatever that case is.
Right. Wow. Wow. And because that's the thing. I used to work with a young man, and he had a lot of anger.
Okay.
And all I can do is just, hey, we're gonna communicate, we're gonna talk, we're gonna train, we're gonna work out. But a lot of times I just noticed that he didn't need to work out as much as he needed to have a conversation. He just needed
Yes,
to just to have just to talk to somebody, just have someone to talk to, in other words. But
that's the
um,
connection. That's why I
yeah,
said humans
yeah,
need other humans.
yeah,
And when
yeah.
you have someone, and it was a distraction, because if he's talking to you, you're giving him this little feedback. He's moving towards a solution. Now if he was
Mhm.
talking to you and you were agreeing with him and you were pumping up whatever he was saying and he's getting even more angry, it might go in the other direction. But if
Right.
he's talking to you and you kind of are that listening ear, but you're
Yeah.
not going with him into his negative space, you have the power of influence. So
Hmm.
your solidness and your attention to wanting to find solutions for him helps to bring him up,
Right.
so yeah,
Right.
that's a
And
good.
yeah, I'm so proud of him because he came from just a broken state and place to where he's in college. And he said something and he's doing very well in college. And it's been about maybe 3 years now. And he said something to me the other day. He there's a movie that's called Coach Carter,
Mhm.
and it's Samuel Jackson. So there's a young man. He stands up in the gym, and he recites the poem. My goodness, the fear poem. The only thing we have to fear is
Yes.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. So I can't remember her name.
Marion Williamson.
There we go. Love that poem. I just can never remember the name of it.
Well,
But
I don't remember the actual name of it, but I know it's
yeah,
Marianne
yeah,
Williamson's poem.
exactly. Love that poem. And so he recites this poem in the movie, and every time I watch that scene, it just sends chills through my body because of the impact that Coach Carter, the character in the movie, Samuel Jackson, had on his life. And so I sent my person, the young gentleman, that clip, because it's so inspiring. And it reminds me of a place that he was. And he sent a reply back, my client. He said, Todd, Coach Todd, you saved my life. And boom, I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, that just like blew my mind. And from that point, I just, started tearing up because I didn't realize what I was doing as much as just being there. And like you say, we need each other. And and that's why we're ultimately here. Earlier, you were driven by the pharmacy thing because of, the money thing. It was attractive, it was appealing, but I do really believe that when we are looking to seek, instead of, going after money, go after impact. That's ultimately what we want to do. Impact people's lives, do something, to help people live their best life, entitled the show here. But now I'm going to talk to you about something right quick, because this is, like I said, this is very new to, I would probably say, a lot of people in this Western world here. How long has Reiki been a part of humanity? Any idea how long it's been around?
Okay, so I'm going to preface this with something. Okay. Energy work has always been around.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
Energy work has always been around. And I think that I want to clarify some of the confusion that people have about Reiki, because I've run into people who will say, oh, they're doing Reiki. And what they're doing is energy work, because we have these natural abilities within us, right? We have all of these natural things that we come with. And so there are people, like I know healers who can literally touch the person and all they do is like yawn and it takes out whatever the infirmity is in their body. They have that natural ability.
You've seen that?
Energy work, right?
Yeah.
Reiki is a form of energy work.
Okay.
It's one of the paths. So it's sort of like you have fruit and you have apples, you have oranges, you have grapes, you have bananas. You know what I mean? Reiki would be an orange or an apple or a banana in that energy work field.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay. So I preface the answer with that, because when you ask how long has Reiki been around, it's been around a long time, but I would say not as long as energy work.
Energy work has been.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So the lineage that I'm with is Usui Sensei. So this gentleman named, last name was Usui. He was a practitioner who helped to train other practitioners in Reiki. And he taught symbols to those people, because there's things you can do energetically to help elevate someone as well. Just like we talked about frequency and vibration and all of that. So he had these symbols. One symbol is for the focus. One symbol helps with mental clarity and grief and all of that. One symbol helps with healing. And then there's one that helps with what they call it's called the distant symbol. So like you can do Reiki on someone that's not with you. Like they can be, I have clients in New York and Texas and places like that. So they don't have to be in the room with you. Actually, most of my Reiki practice now is distant rather than with that person. So he taught symbols, he taught Reiki as a lifestyle. They met and worked together, and there was that mentoring and teaching part of it. And so I think that's a part of the difference with Reiki, is that there is supposed to be, everybody doesn't do it, but there's supposed to be that training that goes with it, because you can be like, I have one of my level 2 students. he came to me because he knew he had this natural thing in his hands. He knew he had the energy work ability, but he wanted something, he wanted the training, and he wanted something he could label it so that people would accept it. So he became trained in Reiki. So you take what you have and then you coach and train, and you learn and study and you adjust your lifestyle so that you can be better at it. Just like with any other thing you do with, whether it's an athlete or a musician or an actress or whatever, there's certain natural abilities, but then you go through the training and the coaching and the personal work to allow you to be better at it. Reiki is just one of those vessels, one of those, not vessels, but streams, I guess you could say, of practice, of personal development, so that you can be a better practitioner.
And then there's something that I really, you brought it to my attention, working on people at a distance. That's interesting. How does that work? Because
it's just energy. Did you not hear me tell you can send a fax to another country
I know
and the fax
that
goes through?
But it's the Wi-Fi energy. Of like
it is just that. And the thing is, when you're doing distant, the key to it is not to consider the distance, because actually the distance center was not just distance, it's time and space.
It's what?
So time and space.
Okay, yes.
So it's not just the distance, it's the time as well. So you can send Reiki forward into your day, or there's other ways to use it. That's a training that the level 2 practitioners get, is how to use that symbol. But the key is that in the West, it's called the distant symbol, because you figure that person's not with you. But really it's the connection symbol, because the key to assisting someone with their healing journey is to realize there is no distance between the two of you. And you connect to that space that you guys share, because we're all connected. We just don't, our current understanding and what a lot of the mainstream science teaches doesn't help us to understand the level of that connection. But we are truly all connected. And when you can realize that connection, you can assist that person from wherever they are in the world. It doesn't matter.
Wow, that's good to know. I will say that is so good to know. So now I'm going to touch on this one right here, because this has really been this question really plagued me for a few days, because I was just wondering, like, okay, how does Reiki come across to the African American community, to the Black community? How are we receiving this practice? Because we can be a little bit, traditional in our ways and conservative.
What's funny to me is I think of Reiki as woo-woo. I think of it personally as something that's kind of woo-woo, and people will think it's weird or whatever. But the majority of my clients are actually Christians.
Oh, wow.
And they're pretty traditional. But there's something in them that has this understanding that there is more or deeper. There's something more or deeper that they just aren't necessarily getting. And it's not about the dogma or any of that, because, and that's kind of how I reach people who have different perspectives, because I've studied all the major religions. Like I literally have read the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching. I've studied Confucius. I've studied, like I know what a lot of people believe. And so I'm able to meet them where they are. So if I'm talking to someone who has only ever read the Bible and they're strictly Christian, well, then I'm going to speak their language, because it's all it is just language, right? We just speak different languages in how we communicate with God or experience God, right? So I speak their language and bring them to the idea that when Jesus was teaching and when Jesus was healing, he said, "These things I do, you will do, and greater." Jesus was healing people. Jesus was raising people from the dead. What do you think that means if you're going to do even more than that? At the very least, you should be able to help someone heal. Some of the fruits of the spirit, or some of the those gifts. One of the gifts was the gift of healing. One of the gifts was the gift of miracle making. So what does that mean? What does that look like? So I bring them back to that. There's also a scripture that talks about what you're supposed to meditate on, what you're supposed to focus on. And it's all the good stuff. That's how you heal yourself. That's one of the Reiki precepts, right? There's 5. One of the things about Reiki is you have these precepts, right? Or principles. It says, just for today, do not anger, do not worry, respect your elders and teachers, honor, make your living honestly, and show compassion.
Wow.
That's a part of the teachings, but that goes back to it. Most of the diseases that we have are due to stress, right? So that's worry.
Yeah.
Or it's due to anger. You just talked about it. People are in prison because they couldn't manage their anger. So if you were to even work the stew out of one of those, you would probably be well and be happy.
Simplicity.
Yes.
It's amazing how, and I always talk to my wife, about it. The Bible is a nice sized book. And I always say, the second, the New Testament, all we needed was 4 books. John, Mark, Paul, John, Mark, the Gospels. All we needed was 4, and that would have been it. So what you're saying, just 5, these principles, and how if we just followed just 1 or 2 and move towards 5, my goodness, how less stressful would we be? How much, how well would we ultimately be?
And we would be out of everyone else's business, because if we were actually taking full responsibility, that's the key. If you take responsibility, right, and you focus on doing your personal work, we would not have all these problems in the world, because just doing your own personal development it will keep you busy enough.
Wow.
You won't be in everyone
You're right
else's
about that.
business.
You're right about that. Wow, that's really something else, Doc, I will say, because a buddy of mine in New York, he always speaks of simplicity, and he does everything in his life just to maintain a simple life. He smiles, he laughs. I mean, that's probably the first thing that he would always say that he does the most. And I gained that from him. I saw that work in his life each and every day. Just by laughter alone, he just saw the world differently than the person that is stressed out, so tight and wound up, that doesn't have that opportunity, or just doesn't give that awareness, or have that awareness about how something as simple as laughter can bring such a higher level of joy and or vibration, as we call it. So that this has been such an awesome conversation, my God. And I can tell
I say something to you about
yes,
simplicity?
please
Okay,
do.
so
Because you
one
get
of the
passionate,
things-
this stuff, you get like you get riled up.
well, because it's so it's simple, but it's not always easy. And a lot of times we get in our own way because of our programming, what we think we're supposed to do, or how we have been trained to react to things. We think we're supposed to be mad about something when it happens. We don't take the time to actually pull back and change our perspective of it so that we can see it clearer. Back from the tree so you can see the forest, that type of thing. So when I'm working with someone, like you talked about people being more open, and I told you I have a lot of Christians, one of the things that I talk to them about, not just with Reiki, definitely with Reiki, but also when I'm having them do something simple. Okay, I need you to drink some water. I need you to go to sleep, simple things. I need you to sit and breathe for 15 minutes a day, every day or something. I take them to the parable about Elijah. Elijah is a prophet in the Old Testament. And one of the things that happened was this leper sent his servant to get instructions from Elijah on how he can heal himself. Elijah sent back and said, I want you to just go dip in this river over here. Well, the man gets all mad because he's like, does he know who I am? Basically, like, does he know who I am? He's going to tell me to go over to that little river when it could have been any one of these grand, nice ones. And so the manservant says, Master, if he had told you to go over and take this trip and do all this other stuff, you would have been okay with it. But because he told you something so simple, you're upset and you're going to miss your healing. And that was, I bring them to that because I'm like, he was going to miss his healing because it was too simple. And he thought simplicity was beneath him. And that's what we do. We think simplicity won't work. And I tell people, if you're going to work with me, I don't do complicated. People complicate things. A lot of practitioners complicate it because they are trying to justify charging. And they think people won't want to charge if they don't get enough out of it. And I had to get to that place within me as a practitioner where I was confident enough to know I'm showing up for this person. We're going to have such a connection. They're going to get such a benefit from our connection that they are not going to have a problem paying whatever I'm asking because they will understand what they've gotten. They will feel the benefit and they will be able to make changes that impact their life going forward, not just theirs, but it's stuff they can teach generationally, right? So yeah, we need to do more simple and just trust simple. If we do simple consistently and well, that'll be enough.
Well, I tell you, that's the new T-shirt. Trust the simple.
Yes, do it. Get some merch out there.
That's exactly, trust the simple. But so one last question I do have to put to you right quick, Doc. And this is the deep question. Kind of like the intro. Take it a little bit inward here. So, what has Reiki taught you about yourself? And what has it also taught you about people?
Wow. I think Reiki taught me that there's a lot more of me than this physical body that I see. And how connected we really are. How much we don't understand and how well it works. And I see that when I'm working with my students, because I always invite my students who've already gone through the training, I invite them back to work with the students who are currently at a class that are getting trained. And I have them work on someone and they do the consultations simultaneously, and they tell the person stuff, and it makes it real for them because they say, oh, wow, I noticed that too, or I got that too, and it becomes real for them. And that just says to me, there's so much we don't see and that we don't know. And it puts you in awe and it humbles you, but it makes you more appreciative, and everything becomes more, you just have more reverence for life, life itself, because you see things happen that shouldn't be happening, that would be classified as miracles, but it's really not a miracle. Miracles are just a lack of understanding of what's possible. And Reiki has taught me what's possible. Beautiful.
Wow. That was mic drop on that one. My goodness. And I always say, I like we were saying earlier, now everyone, this is my new introverted friend. And she says she's an introvert, as you can see. When she latches onto a topic, such as what she's passionate about, boom, here she comes. And I'm the same way too. I think when we find something that we're passionate about, we can always come out of that introvert type of personality. But thank you so much for hanging out.
Thank you for having me.
This has been such a phenomenal conversation, and one of the best ones, because this is something that, like I said, I've never had a conversation with someone like yourself with regards to what you do with energy work or Reiki, to be more specific. So like I said, I really get into the conversations when it comes to vibration, because I understand that. I had an experience years ago that I now I wonder if it was even real, if it was just a dream. But it was the first time, everybody, that I ever saw the sun. And it was, I know you like, what are you talking about? So just to kind of long story short, I was on the M track, and it was coming up. No, it was actually coming towards the evening. I was going back up to New York where I used to live, and I saw the sunset, and it was so close and so powerful that I just started crying, because it was almost as if it was the first time I had ever seen the sun. I stood up and I looked around, and no one was looking at, no one was noticing it. So it was just for me.
Yes.
It was
that was
just
the thought
for me.
that was in my head. The
Yeah.
sun showed up for you. And when you get to that place where you realize we share a reality, but there's so much that shows up for us. I have a post on my Facebook page somewhere years ago. Every bird that you hear is singing for you, for your enjoyment. They're just singing. That tree is standing there waiting for you to appreciate the shade. It shows up for you. And that's what we have to do, show up for each other. Every time you show up in a space. So you know how people will say, peace, sister, peace, brother, or whatever. That's just words. But if you come and you are peace, then you really have something to give, and you show up for that person. Just like the sun showed up for you, you show up as your best self, and the impact is like ripples beyond measure.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Because I noticed that in that experience, it's like, this thing is huge. This thing called life, that is. If not huge, it's infinite. You know, this is, it's way more than I ever thought of. And that came from that experience.
Yes.
Of just seeing the sun for the first time.
Nature taught me.
Yeah. And that taught me that, wow, there's way more going on than I even thought of. And so speaking with people like yourself, you're in tune. You know that there's something going on way more than we can see just with our physical eyes here. And I appreciate your work. I appreciate what you're doing. And my God, please keep doing it, because honestly, we need you. We definitely need you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a platform to talk about something that I love so much. But
oh my goodness, I cannot wait to. I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, who else can I tell about to have her on her show, on this show? Like, because once again, I think we have to get this information out there. We have to get practitioners like yourself out there, so people can, once again, like my whole thing is, get well and be well, live a lifestyle where you are proactive instead of reactive. And so that's what we really want to be. We really.
Well, next time, let's have a conversation. Have me back, and we'll have a conversation about frequency and vibration and all of that.
Please do.
How it impacts your well-being.
Wow, I would love that. And I would love that. And I want to learn more about your vegetarian journey too. So all of those things and how they play into, who you are and everything. So once again, Doc, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Thank you. So everybody, listen, I'm sitting here, like I said, I'm thinking about how many people I want to introduce this phenomenal woman to. And so you're going to be getting a call from me, all you podcasters out there in the world, so you can get her onto your show, because once again, we have to get her on to, we have to get this information out there. So listen, take this information down, reach out to her. Where can people find you?
Okay, so I'm going to do better eventually on social media, but I'm Dr. Pam Howard on Facebook as well as on Instagram, but you can also just send me a text or call me at 404-731-2471, or shoot me an email over to Dr. Pam Speaks, that's DRPAM Speaks @gmail.com.
Love it. I will definitely send my people there and let them know about you. So like I said, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Living Your Best Life. And this is one where you can definitely start to improve your life. So listen, next time we'll catch you on the next show of Living Your Best Life. You guys take care. Have a beautiful week.